Hi and welcome. I'm Greg Justice from Scripter Publishing Group, and I have a very special guest with me today, Eric the Trainer. Now, for those of you in the fitness industry, Eric needs no introduction. You'll know who Eric is. He is one of the top trainers in all of the world today. And his methods, they've been utilized by top Hollywood celebrities and UFC fighters. He's appeared in virtually every major magazine and television program, spreading the word about his unique health and fitness methods. And he is also a frequent contributor to Muscle and Fitness magazine. He also is on their advisory board. So, Eric, thank you very much for joining me today to talk about the legacy of Jack LaLanne.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. And I can tell you, I would not have a career at all if it wasn't for the great Jack LaLanne. I credit him as the #1 professional influence of my life. And I think about him on a daily basis, especially when I'm posed with some interesting scenarios, which can happen here in Hollywood. I think to myself, what would Jack do? And the answer is usually what I do.
Awesome. I love that. I love that. Very impactful, no doubt about it. Well, let's start off the interview with having you tell us about the first time you met Jack or learned about Jack and how it impacted you and your career.
Well, I had heard all about Jack while I lived in New York City. I was a trainer in New York City for 5 years. I loved it. It was so great. And it was very clear, according to the books and the magazines and the television stations, that Jack LaLanne was the greatest fitness guru of all time. And that was undeniable. The first time he and I met was actually at Muscle Beach in Venice. And I remember the very moment we locked eyes. It was like seeing a relative that you hadn't seen in a long time. It was thrilling for me, and we spent some time together. That very day, we shot a TV show together, and we had such a great conversation on and off camera. And it was that day where I was sitting with Jack when he turned to me after getting to know me for a while, and he said, "You need to have a TV show." And I remember saying to Jack, what do you mean? And he said, "You need to host a television show." And I said, "Jack, just to be clear, I don't want to be an actor. I have no ambition to be in front of the camera. My goal is to be the greatest personal trainer of all time." And he said, "Listen to me. If you want to get your message out there, it's imperative. This is not a choice. You must have a TV show." Well, guess what? My reaction was, "Oh, great. Oh, nice. Okay, so now I'm going to have to go to these ridiculous hosting classes. I'm going to have to learn how to do this stuff." It did not appeal to me because I always saw myself as the ultimate behind-the-scenes secret of Hollywood actors and rock stars. Well, guess what happened? 6 months later, it's like he was a soothsayer. 6 months later, I got a call literally out of the blue from an outfit based in Chicago that was launching a fitness television show and was looking for the right host. I've now hosted a show here in America and around the world for the past 5 or 6 years. He was right. It really became a megaphone to get out the most important message of health and fitness, of exercise, diet, sleep, and healthy lifestyle. Jack was right. I love that guy.
Absolutely. And talk about impacting millions. And you know, you roll the clock back to 1951 when Jack was the first fitness celebrity to scale that message on this medium we now call television. So you are just furthering his legacy by doing what you're doing there. So I think that is awesome. I love hearing that. Well, let's kind of transition into some, and that's a great story about meeting him, but let's talk about some other stories, some of your favorite, legacy stories of Jack LaLanne, or some of your personal stories, or both.
Well, I can tell you this. In my career, I've tried to emulate Jack LaLanne to the best of my ability. My goal was to be a modern-day version of Jack LaLanne. And really, when I think about Jack, I think about his excellence and his drive and his charisma. But I also think about the fact that he is essentially an ambassador of health and fitness to the common man. So he's not some unattainable bodybuilder on the top of a mountain looking like Hercules. He's actually a guy who, with a big smile on his face and enthusiasm, reached his hand out to the average American and said, "Come with me on this journey. I'll show you how to go and we'll have a great time." And to me, that means the most. His communication skills were so high. I think that's what I admired about him the most, his ability to communicate with the average person. And I have fought my whole life to learn to hone those skills the same way. He is fantastic. And he might have left this earth, but he's alive and well right here in my heart. I mean, I hear his sayings all the time. If man made it, don't eat it. If it tastes good, spit it out. I mean, these resonate in my mind at all times. But like I'm saying, Jack was so far ahead of his time. He almost, in certain ways, he must have seemed like a nut, because the things that he was preaching, the things that he was putting forth were so ahead of his time. There is a Harvard study that talks about, at the end of the day, after all the fad diets are over, the smaller your waist, the longer your life, and conversely, the larger your waist, the shorter your life. Yep. Now, Jack was talking about that 50 years ago, but it took academics all this time to come to the conclusion that Jack knew way back then. I love that guy.
Well, and you know, one of the quotes that I always remember of his, and he said this 70 or more years ago, is your waistline is your lifeline. And you're right. Finally, Harvard caught up to Jack LaLanne.
It's amazing.
But they did think he was a nut. And I know you work with a lot of athletes, a lot of UFC athletes, and some of the wonderful stories that Jack shares are about when athletes would have to sneak into his gym because their coaches wouldn't let them work out, because they said it would ruin their flexibility, that they would have no power or any, I mean, it would just ruin their careers. And so they would sneak in after hours to train with Jack in his gym. So,
he was such an innovator. He was so incredible. And also the fact that he was willing to put himself out there and do those fantastic stunts, to do push-ups and handstand push-ups, to swim with all of the people in the boats with his hands shackled. To me, he was almost a modern day superhero. And as a kid that grew up on a farm in Maine without a lot of TV stations, I read a lot of comic books and I imagined what these superheroes should be. Let me tell you, Jack LaLanne is my superhero.
Well, hey, share the story about, now we both know about Jack's amazing feats of strength and endurance that he would do on his birthday. Tell our audience what you did for your 40th birthday.
Well, I can tell you this. My goal was to emulate Jack LaLanne to the best of my abilities. And my favorite exercise is the Jack LaLanne push-up, going up and down. And so under his direction, I told him I was going to do this. For my 40th birthday, I did 40,000 push-ups to raise money for charity, including 1,000 live on television while I was being interviewed.
That's amazing. And you know, that's one of the stories about how Jack, and I know you know his wife, Elaine, that's one of the stories about how they met, was when Jack went on her television show and did the push-ups throughout the entire show. So that is awesome. Think about that, folks, 40,000 push-ups on his 40th birthday. So if you're thinking that you're over the hill at 40, use that for inspiration and know that you're just beginning. You're just getting started. That's awesome. Okay, well, let's shift gears again and let's talk about legacy now. Legacy is one of those things that sometimes can be hard to define. But when you think about Jack LaLanne and legacy, to you, what is Jack's legacy, both inside our industry and even broader?
You know, to me, Jack's legacy goes back to the way that I define success. When someone comes to me and says, I want to be successful, I always stop them right there and I tell them, I need you to define success, because for every 25 trainers that wander into my office and ask me for career advice, if I ask them what success is, some of them say, success is I would own my own gym like you have. I'm like, okay, so now I know he wants to be a gym owner. Some guys say, I want to have no financial restrictions at all. And now I realize this guy wants to make a lot of money. That's totally fine. That's fine. That's his definition of success. Other trainers will say to me, my goal is to be as busy as you are, to have clients all day long. Whatever your definition of success is, that is a personal decision and I support it. However, for a guy like me, in order for me to define success, I need to look into the world and find someone that I would like to emulate, that I consider successful. And in my life, I have never found someone to emulate better than the great Jack LaLanne. To me, emulating him and following in his amazing footsteps, that's success to me. So his legacy to me is he cut a path through the Amazon forest that I can now follow. And I know that I'm on the right path because of his hard work, because of his innovation. His legacy is He's given me a career and a direction, and I'll always be grateful.
Well, you know, all the people you have impacted, Eric, is part of Jack's legacy, because, you know, it's not necessarily the people that an individual directly impacts, but that next layer about, you know, Jack meant something to you and impacted your life, but how many millions, tens of millions of people have you impacted? And that's Jack's legacy. So I love that. I love that definition that you just gave there, where you have to define success first. And that's terrific. That is a great way to explain that.
The other thing to consider also is, you know, I was a personal trainer in New York City for 5 years and had some real success there, and then came out to California to meet the greats and to learn from the greats like Jack. But, you know, when I was in New York and everyone was saying, oh, you're the best personal trainer, you're the greatest guy in Manhattan, like everyone wants to go to you. I loved hearing those words, but I didn't really understand what it meant. I didn't understand what the trajectory would be. I knew that things were going well, but I didn't have a vision and a direction until I met Jack LaLanne. And when I met Jack, I realized, oh, this is the direction I should go in. These are the things I should do. I need to hone these skills in order to rise to greatness. He really was the example of success.
It almost sounds like you're talking about finding that ultimate purpose, and he was able to help you find clarity toward that purpose.
Yes, he was. And he helps me every day.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. With what Elaine calls his LaLanne-isms, all those little quotes and quips that he had. Well, let's talk about if I were to just mention Jack's name, Jack LaLanne, what are the first 3 words that pop into your head, and why?
If you had just mentioned the word Jack LaLanne, which, by the way, it happens around me sometimes. Sometimes I'm someplace and I can hear his name being mentioned. And once in a while, if I'm really lucky, it's being mentioned as in relation to me doing something. They're like, oh, it's very Jack LaLanne of him. When I think about Jack LaLanne, I don't think about 3 words. I think about 7 words. What can I do for you today? And the notion that when I think of Jack LaLanne, I think about living a service-based life as opposed to a self-serving life. There's a big difference. I wake up every day, and this is a true statement, and I leap out of bed excited to help people that day. I think to myself, what can I do today to help people look better, feel better, live a better life as a service-based individual? And I learned that from the great Jack LaLanne.
That's impact.
Absolutely.
That is impact. That is awesome. Good stuff, Eric. Well, I would love for you to share how our audience that's watching this can learn more about Eric the Trainer. Where can they find out about Eric?
Well, you can always find me on social media at Eric the Trainer. You can go to my website, which is ericthetrainer.com, or you can go on Amazon Prime and watch my show Celebrity Sweat. Many of the episodes and seasons are on Amazon Prime. Or you can join me on a daily workout show that I've been hosting for a while called Morning Glory Live, which is a live show that's shown on Zoom every day. There are celebrities, there are actors, there's live music, there are puppets, and the best workout you'll ever have, morningglorylive.com.
Great. And what projects are you working on currently?
Man, you know, we normally at this time of year would be on tour with big rock bands, but of course during COVID, all the tours are canceled. I just got married, and so that was
congratulations.
Thank you so much. And I'm here in Los Angeles. There are a lot of movies and television shows where I train the actors, and they're getting ready to go back. And so we're starting to hear from those actors that they're going to be coming into the gym and working out with us. But I'll tell you, it's not the celebrities that I'm interested in anymore. I'm on a mission to help the normal man, the person in Des Moines, the person in Kansas City, the person who wakes up and thinks to themselves, oh, another day. I would like to be like Jack LaLanne and help them have some enthusiasm and live a healthier life.